Hi, welcome to the Mangala Samiti podcast, where I talk about business, life, personal development, and other ideas that matter. I am your host, Mangala Samiti, and I am many things: a chartered global management accountant, CFO, author, voiceover artist, and so much more. But I really am just one thing, and that is a creator. I create content and solutions to problems and challenges. I hope this podcast will help you on your own journey to greatness. Thanks so much for tuning into this week's episode. This week, I want to speak about practicing persistence and open-mindedness to achieve what you want. Now, persistence is defined as the fact of continuing in an opinion or course of action in spite of difficulty or opposition. When I was about 13 or 14, my dad told me to persist and that you don't give up easily to obtain something you've had your eye on. You have to fight for it. I remember at the time I was standing in my dad's room at the edge of their bed. My dad and my mom were on their bed, and there's something that I was asking my mom for. It was a pack of snacks, and my mom said, "No, I can't give it to you." And after she told me no, I didn't bother to fight for it. I just said, "You know what, it's fine. I'm not going to even bother." And when I was about to walk away, my dad stopped me in my tracks and he told me, "No, you don't just walk away. The first time you are told no, you have to fight for it. You have to persist, son, and fight for the thing that you want." And it's something that I've carried with me for quite some time. You can imagine, since I was 14, 13 years old. So I acquired my certificate in business accounting at the age of 21, then my diploma in management accounting at 22, and my advanced diploma in management accounting at 23. I was now 27 and had spent the last of my 3 years working extremely hard to acquire the necessary professional experience requirements to be granted membership to CIMA. I remember it was a Friday, and it was the day that I was going to get my membership finally. So I put on my 3-piece gray suit and was ready for my face-to-face interview. I prepared my detailed CV outlining all my experience and had it signed off, and I believed I was ready to finally become a chartered management accountant, as I had obviously acquired the necessary experience over the last 3 years, and I had passed all the qualifying exams. I submitted my documents that morning for assessment at the CIMA offices, and I was in a very great mood. This was the day that I became a CIMA member. I finally went in for my interview, and I believed that interview I was on point, and I executed it at the excellence standard. However, when some people started being called and being given their badges, and mine seemed to be taking a while, I got that feeling that something wasn't right, and I may need to start preparing for a fight. I was hoping I was wrong, but the time came and I was called into a separate room with the director of CIMA and the chief assessor. And what they said next made my heart drop, and it felt like I was hit extremely hard by an oncoming train. I remember I sat there and couldn't believe what it was I was hearing. The assessor denied me the qualification and told me I wasn't ready, when I believed in my heart of hearts that I was ready for this qualification and finally to get my membership. They said I should spend another year preparing financial statements and then reapply in a year's time. All I could think about was how hard I had worked for the past 3 years, the sleepless nights I had spent believing it was good enough, and being told that it wasn't good enough was a slap in the face. It was extremely hard. It was extremely tough. It was heartbreaking for me. When I finally came to, after running all these thoughts through my head, all I remember saying was, "Nope, I don't agree with you, and I believe you've made a mistake." And I'd say to them, the qualification is not only preparation of financial statements. There's a vast range of experience outside of this one requirement, and that is outlined in the experience requirement. So how can you say I have not met the experience requirements? And they told me, "No, but you have to realize that CIMA is a finance qualification, it's an accounting qualification. And one of the requirements of being in finance is you have to prepare financial reports. And I went back and I said, no, I understand that. But if you look at the experience requirements that CIMA itself outlines, preparation of financial statements is but one of many. And I've met a lot of these. However, as I continue going back and forth with this line of argument with them, and they kept telling me, no, it isn't. I kept telling them, yes, it is. And they continued to tell me how they couldn't grant me that membership. I then believed it was time to incorporate my next approach. You see, I wasn't going to take no for an answer. And I believed that I was ready to be given that membership. So it was time for me to incorporate my next approach, open mindedness. Open mindedness is defined as the quality of being willing to consider ideas and opinions that are new or different to your own. So I've gone through this line of thinking of why I believe I'm right and they are wrong, and I realized something. This is not a personal attack on my work or on me as an individual. They just have an idea that is different to mine, and they've made it a requirement for me to obtain. And this is the hurdle that I'm going to have to pass in order for me to be granted this membership. I decided at that point to really listen to what they were saying and try an approach that would maybe satisfy them. Also, I had spent the last year doing some volunteer work preparing financials, and when I was preparing my detailed CV, funny enough, I didn't purposefully go into detail of that volunteer work as I didn't deem it necessary. So, I only outlined the work I performed in a summarized manner, as I believe my performance analyst role would have been sufficient to meet the requirements of membership. So I asked them the question, but I have spent time, specifically the last year, preparing financials, and it's listed on my experience. I purposefully didn't go into detail on it. Would that be sufficient? They asked me why I didn't go into detail, and I told them I didn't think it relevant because the qualification is, once again, very vast, and I had met those requirements based on the performance analyst role that I had listed and gone into detail. I could see the look on their faces at that time, and before they could think of another way to say no and deny me the membership, I quickly asked them, if I expand on this work as I have spent the last year preparing financials, the year that you want me to spend to do so, will you grant it to me? They took a moment and finally said yes. And I thanked them and quickly walked out of that room to go and expand the detail on this volunteer work and get it signed off. Needless to say, I returned the following day, submitted that expanded experience, and the same assessor who looked at it the previous day interviewed me another time on it, and he asked me the detail of the financial reports I had prepared, how much time it had taken, and the process I had undertaken. And when he smiled and said, okay, I knew I had hit the jackpot. A few minutes later, the president of CIMA at the time, David Stanford was his name, I believe, shook my hand and welcomed me as the newest member of the institute. Two things I believed worked here: persistence, to not take no for an answer, and open-mindedness, to listen to the reasons for denial and make the relevant change to achieve what it is I wanted. I encourage you to use these two. Persist, but be open-minded too. Have the fighting spirit to get what you want, but listen to feedback that is meant to help you and grow you and move you forward. Thanks so much for tuning into this week's episode. I hope it's helped you in one way or another. Send me an email on mangaleso.meety@gmail.com with any feedback that you may have. Until next time, enjoy your week.